So in everybody uses abbreviations for everything, and President of the United States is POTUS. The First Lady of the United States is now FLOTUS. And what people come to refer to is the Supreme Court of the United States is SCOTUS. Bad, wrong. The name should be SCROTUS, scrotum of the United States, because that's about what they're all goddamn worth. But, all right, so I have just insulted the Supreme Court. Fine, give a shit. Let me give you a little something that they don't do, but let me give you a little history here, a little history lesson. We'll start sort of the end of the last century and the beginning of this century. So after the 2000 election, it was clear that Al Gore won. And they were going through a lot of rigmarole in Florida and whether they were going to count, 3 or 4 controversial counties. And there was a lot of legal maneuvering going back and forth. And it was going to the Florida Supreme Court. And the Florida Supreme Court was getting ready to rule in accordance with Florida law that you would have a statewide recount, of which everybody knew. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody knew that Gore was going to win. And so in a panic, the Republicans go to the Supreme Court. So then the Supreme Court decides, without any, they give some kind of a bullshit opinion that they said, don't pay any attention to this. This is whole opinion is to be disregarded. We're just going to steal the fucking election right in front of your face. And they did it. And of course, the commentary was saying, well, it's American law. The court has spoken. We're a nation of laws. Do you think shit they read anything? Do you think that they cared? They said, we're just going to steal an election. And they stole it right in front of you. So, and they were expecting that there was going to be, I'm sure, there was going to be this giant pushback and people were going to, people like protested and shit. And Gore, he's an elegant man, a very patriotic person. He said, well, the court has spoken. I think it was a mistake. And we didn't raise any hell. And from that, they learned a lesson. They don't give a shit. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about public opinion. The only two things that this court cares about is expanding corporate power and limiting the autonomy that people have over their own bodies. They don't give a fuck about anything else. And you got these constitutional scholars and they study statutory interpretation and constitutional history and stare decisis and the legal tradition. It's all a fucking waste of time. The entire constitutional law professors at Ivy League colleges and this, they're wasting their time. I know more than they do. I can tell you how anything is going to come out. What side benefits power? So it was long held that you had a right to regulate campaign spending and stuff. And I think it was a case called Buckley versus Vail. I don't remember. I hadn't opened a law book since 1975. And I know more constitutional law interpretation in the Supreme Court than every fucking law professor in the United States. Because they actually think it's legit. Because they've invested all of their time. They take their LSAT, they make 179, and they write these law review articles. And I don't know how to tell you this, dude. You just wasted your whole fucking life. Just ask me. And I'll tell you which way it's coming out. So Supreme Court says, we don't have enough money in politics in this country. And so we're just going to unilaterally, on our own, rule on a case called Citizens United, which basically said you could flood all the fucking money you wanted to. You didn't have to report anything. companies could give anything they wanted to. Dog money groups, see Jane Mayer. I don't even want to waste my time telling you that they just said, fuck it. There's more corporate money out there than there's anything else, and that's going to help power, corporate power, and we're just going to do it. They did it. Give a shit. As if they care. And of course, Mitch McConnell, we all, oh my God, it was all the same crap. All right, they did, there's 9 people on the Supreme Court, James, and that's a statute you can't, the Democrats are crazy. They're going to talk about, if they get back in power, they're going to try to move it to 11 or some bullshit. Mitch McConnell just said right in front of you, it's going to be 8. I'm not going to even give anybody a hearing. That's nothing. What the shit do you think they did? Then they said, we got too many fucking people voting out there, and too many people that are voting that are frankly not white people. So somebody said, let's challenge the Voting Rights Act. They'll play a case called Shelby County versus Holder. And John Roberts, a corporate criminal, if there ever was one, says, well, there's no racism in the country. We don't really need a Voting Rights Act. Oh, okay. you want to tell you in your everyday life, and you look at Donald Trump, and you look at racism, that's something that's in the past. We don't want to have that ugly stuff and deal with it. They just did it. They just fucking did it. Court spoken in, let's say with Professor such and such, and Freed says, and Professor this and such and such. And they all got one thumb up their ass and one in their mouth, and they're all acting like this shit is legit. So then, of course, they lie. You don't think Kavanaugh lied under oath to a congressional committee? Oh, please. I don't even need to remind you who Kavanaugh was, the chief guy for Ken Starr, maybe one of the worst people in modern American history, who oversaw athletes raping women at Virginia, who had a girl, as he was pontificating, representing Jeffrey Epstein, as he was pontificating about morality, he was thumping his girlfriend. And you're going to tell me that Brett Kavanaugh wasn't leaking grand jury material to Steno Sue Schmidt? Oh, man, please don't. Why am I having to tell you this and give you the real history of what goes on? Amy Coney Barrett from New Orleans, I know all of these. Cardinal Burke comes down here. This is a center of right-wing Catholicism. People of Praise, which is a cult. And I don't really have an opinion on Roe versus Wade. I would have to look at the facts, Senator, before I would ever render. Anybody could do that from under oath before a congressional committee. And again, you treat Kavanaugh and Barrett like they're legit people. And Clarence Thomas, he doesn't care. They buy him SUVs. They take him on vacations. They do this. And he said, oh, I don't care. I don't care about anything. And by the way, if some third grader chews gum in a classroom, they'll want to write for corporal punishment. Alito goes on a fishing trip to Alaska on a G5, and they call him, and he said, well, the seat was empty, so I thought in other words, he just was out at Dulles Airport. He saw a G5, and somebody said, well, it holds 15, and we got 14. He said, well, I'll just kind of hitch a ride. I tell you, as a kid, we used to hitchhike. All right? That's all he was doing. He wasn't, being bought off or anything, or some Supreme Court. Roberts' wife is a headhunter for big law firms. All right, Gorsuch sold a place to somebody that does business before the Supreme Court. It's not legit. They don't give a shit. And all I can tell you, because you don't want to go to jail, if they make a ruling, you better follow it, because they'll lock your ass up faster than you can say anything. But you don't respect it. You don't ever think it's legit. Don't ever think, if you go to Russia, what about me? I'm not going to go, and you see what happened to people with Brittany Grenier, you see what happened in the world. But The Supreme Court is no more legit than Putin. You got to understand that. So then, they bring this case up, and there's 91 indictments, and of course, Merrick Garland sat on his ass for a year and a half or whatever, but okay. And so Jack Smith is going to save us. Oh, shit. They dispensed of that in 2 seconds. Do you think that they actually went into like chambers and discussed this and told some clerk, get me the legislative history there, and I want to know the. Of course they didn't. And, it used to be a legit thing. When they did like Brown versus Board, they actually had legal reasoning, something called the 14th Amendment, where, of course, to the current Supreme Court, it doesn't even exist. Neither does the 15th, I think, is the right to vote. The 13th, I guess they would concede that you can pay people as little as you want, but you got to pay them something because that would violate the 13th Amendment. But that's about it. That's about all it is. And I know that you get frustrated out there. And the best thing I can tell you is they don't even care about me, but we got to win this election some kind of way or another, because they have consolidated power. They just took the Supreme Court. They changed the composition of it. The Democrats have won the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections. They stole the 2000 election right in front of your face. You imagine how different the world would be if that would have been a legit thing. They do what the fuck they want. They don't care. And you should never be sucked into reading these accounts. And some of these people are very good, and they just can't bring themselves to admit that their whole life's work ain't worth a shit. That you did what you were told to do. You did what you were supposed to do. You loved the law. You studied the law. I don't fall into that trap where you end up a certain age and it all dawns on you that the entire thing is all bullshit. And where you can just take the 14th Amendment, which supposedly gives every person in the United States, and I said the word person, understand that, quote, equal protection and due process. That was the basis that they actually did legal reasoning in Brown. Thurgood Marshall was the lawyer. They went to Barrow Warren. They argued it. They got people together, and they actually had a reason, and they had to overturn Plessy v. Ferguson. Of course, it came out of New Orleans. Homer Plessy, I can still see the statue where he was on the streetcar and the segregation. But at least they used to try. At least they used to come up with some constitutional or statutory reason for a decision. And I don't give a fuck. They take any money from anybody. They do anything that they want. They decide a case. They don't even give you a reason for it. They don't have to. And it all started with Bush v. Gore. And that told them they could do anything they wanted. They didn't have to do shit. And that all of the so-called news media and elites and law professors were going to treat this all in constitutional law, and they're going to treat it all as legit horse shit. I hate to bring you this bad news, but it's better that you know it and that you understand it. And the only way that you can deal with this is we have to, and I don't know how we're going to do it, we have to outvote them and outvote them a lot, because if you get anything in range, they're going to steal it right from you. I promise you, they don't give a shit about the Constitution. They don't give a shit about the law. They don't care about public opinion. They don't care about the news media. They don't care about talking heads on cable TV who spent their whole life acting like this is some legit deal. So I think it's very important for you as students in Professor Carville's class to understand that a C student at LSU Law School that has not looked at a law book in the last probably 50 years, knows more law than the accumulated constitutional law Supreme Court faculty of every law school in the United States, because I know something they don't. And it's all a bullshit rigged deal, and always side with protecting power and restricting what women can do. That's it. That's the whole game. And they're going to protect anything they can. And they're not even going to tell you why. You fool. Did you really think that Kavanaugh was legit? Did you really think that Amy Coney Barrett never thought about abortion? Do you really think that Sam Alito just happened to be at the airport and there was a G5 with him to see, and he just got on the airplane, nothing there to see? Did you actually think that Harlan Crow tell Clarence Thomas what to do? No, you don't. Now you don't. Now you know, and we'll just proceed from there with the knowledge that it's all bullshit and fake. Now you got to follow it. Very big on following the law here, but don't ever believe it. Thank you and good night.